KFUG, Community Radio for Crescent City, Del Norte, and beyond. And we just unplugged the headphones, Bob and I. Two radio guys. Just Paul with you. You're tuned to KFUG LP, Crescent City, 101.1 FM online, kfogradio.org. Donna Westfall makes an appearance, as if on cue. How you doing, Donna? Good. Not bad. So, joined live in the studio now with Supervisor District 5, Del Norte County, Mr. Bob Berkowitz. How you doing, Bob?
Hey, it's a good morning.
It is a good morning. It's a beautiful day out there.
Yes, it is.
So we were talking before we went. We have many things to discuss today. Key, of course, the cannabis vote on the ban that happened last week and subsequent fallout, and everybody has questions about that. But first, we were just shooting the breeze before going on. How's a year as a supervisor in Del Norte County been?
Well, it's been a challenge. All right, and you've got to remember that the board basically makes the decisions. The buck stops here, and that means whatever decision we make, half the population is going to love you, and the other half is going to hate you. So the more decisions you make, the more people hate you. That's basically it. But I'm happy in that kind of position. I enjoy making decisions for the constituents.
I thought it was an interesting sort of dynamic you pointed out when we were discussing too about how it's really only the difficult stuff that bubbles up through the hierarchy to the board. So all the easy stuff staff gets to take care of, things that are no-brainers, and the mechanical sorts of things that people don't get angry about so much, and then everything else bubbles up, and you're sort of up there as a lightning rod. You got to take it when you have to make these decisions.
Well, yeah, and the decisions that we make are the tough ones, but you have to do it. You're in that position. They've elected you to vote.
It's your job.
And that's what you need to do.
All right. Well, let's dive in. The cannabis vote. I want to give just a little background. One thing that's gotten me with watching all of the reaction online, and is really how little people understand about what has happened, what has occurred in the Board of Supervisors. Everybody just sees the word ban. And they think, that's it, ban. Del Norte County is banning cannabis. My God, what is this? The 1950s. Things. Everybody just reacts. And not understanding that the ban was put in place initially 50, 60 days ago to get something on the books to keep the state from calling the shots as far as cannabis regulation in the Prop 64 era in Del Norte County. And that was to buy time for the working group to come up with Del Norte-centric ordinances to govern the responsible rollout of legal, recreational, commercial cannabis in Del Norte. But of course, everybody just sees ban, and they see the Board of Supervisors voting to ban or not ban. That's high level. That's a fair characterization?
Fair characterization.
Okay.
You got it.
So, Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to start this ban, the initial interim ban, the 45-day ban, back in, December or so. You voted for that, correct?
Correct.
We'll get to what has happened subsequently, but can I ask your thoughts at the time about voting for the ban?
Well, you're starting basically in the middle.
Okay, all right. Take me back to the beginning.
Let's start at the very beginning. Here is the headline from the triplicate. Soups aim to get out in front of legalization.
And that's like a 2015 article, right?
Yeah, look at that. May 29th.
Yeah. No, I saw that online.
2015. Let me get rid of my phone here.
That's...
Wouldn't you know this person be calling me right in the middle.
Gitlin, he's on the air, Roger.
You can't believe that Roger Gitlin would call me right in the middle of my board presentation. So I'm going to let Roger know that he should probably call me later. Thank you, Roger. All right.
I'm hurt. That means Roger's not listening.
That's right. So the board wanted to get out in front of this. Mm-hmm. This was even before I was on the board. Mm-hmm. We're talking 3 years ago. Okay? What's been happening in 3 years? And we look at this and we say, absolutely nothing. Now think of it. The board's had almost 3 years to make some kind of commitment to do something. Mm-hmm. Has any board member made a commitment of what they want? Do they want it legal? Do they want it not legal? Do they want it not to be around schools? Maybe not in neighborhoods? Whatever. And I'm going to ask you this, Paul, which supervisors have made a commitment of what they want out of this legislation?
I'm going to answer that in several parts.
Okay.
First, this was something. I saw this last night looking on, and I had to subscribe to the e-version of the triplicate, and I'm really angry about having to do that just to go back and search past articles. But this was 2015. This happens before... Wow, let's see, was by this time, May 2015, to get on a ballot in 2016, was there even, were they even gathering signatures for Prop 64 that early?
I think that the board was considering, okay, if this becomes our responsibility, what are we going to do here in Delaware County? Okay? What did you have? You had Martha McClure and David Finnegan.
It just seems faulting the board for this ignores subsequent things that occurred, including the passage of Prop 64 and the deadline and legalization 2018. I understand there being... seems like you're faulting the board at the time for wanting to get out into an area where really there wasn't much out there to learn from yet.
But they were aware of what was going on and what was coming down. Don't you think we'd say, let's get prepared. Let's find out what the community wants, okay? And even if we can't figure out what the community wants, after all, it's only 2015, let's be prepared from some different scenarios. Did you see any planning since then? Do you see any action?
Not until Prop 64 passes, right?
Yeah,
and then they start at the beginning of 2017. There was the workshops, the public workshops, and trying to get public input then, because then it becomes a reality, and they're going to have to deal with it.
Okay.
So I don't know. It seems like kind of unfair to fault somebody for that.
I'm not going to fault them, but basically I just want to say here's where we started. But let's talk about 2017. Now we have Prop 64 passed. Okay, we take a look and we see, first of all, something we don't get a chance to do very often, and that is take a pulse of the public.
Yeah.
The public told us exactly what they wanted.
Overwhelmingly,
right?
yeah.
Overwhelmingly. In every supervisorial district, it was the same. They wanted recreational marijuana. Simple enough. Okay. If they want marijuana, legalized marijuana, don't you think your board would say, board, it looks like our public wants legalized marijuana. Okay? So let's give, if we're going to create a cannabis working group, let's give them some direction of what we want to do.
Okay, this was kind of, it almost seemed, I was sitting and I'm watching the last meeting, and how can I say this? It was frustrating to watch it. First off, it was after the fact.
And it was frustrating for you?
I bet, I bet it was a lot of fun to sit up there too. Okay, so it seems to me there are two different ways to deal with a situation like the Cannabis Working Group from the Board of Supervisors' point of view. And one is to bring these people together who are representative of the county in general. They're not representative of, it's not just Joel meeting and writing an ordinance. It was Jesse, it was Blake Alexander, there's a whole bunch of people. It was Sheriff Apperson, folks from city and county, citizens in general on this board. Is that the kind of board that or the working group, is that the kind of group that the Board of Supervisors would say, okay, go do this and this and this? You don't have the expertise for this. It seems that the working group was set up to bring things together and then advise the board, which is like the other direction.
Go back further.
Okay.
Okay? Go back about 8 months ago. All right? If you're going to formulate this board, wouldn't you want to know beforehand, is the board in favor of legalized cannabis, or are they against it? Are we going to give a working group a mandate to come back with something with us if we're just going to say no? Why waste their time?
Well, exactly. But again, the big word in that sentence for me is if. You set up a working group and say, come up with these ordinances, listen to each other, find something that works for Delaware County. That right there seems to be an affirmative. We're going to work toward that. And the working group brings all of these things, and they start the piecemeal rolling out of the ordinances.
What if the board says, we don't want marijuana in this county?
Yeah, what if?
Yeah, what if?
But they hadn't, and
Wait a
they set
minute.
up the working group.
Why didn't they give an indication of what they wanted? Whether it was going to be banned completely or not.
Isn't the working group's existence that indication?
No, it's not.
Why not?
Absolutely. Because it's a way of kicking the can down the road. And that's what you've got. Take a look at how long it's taken for no progress. Remember, we haven't had a report from the working group saying...
I think Jesse Davis would argue against there being no progress.
No, we haven't had a report from anybody saying, here's where we are and here's where we're planning to go. Mm-hmm. All right, here's what we're willing to accept. We haven't had any of that kind of thing at all. And so, bringing you up to date here, and so about 50 days ago, we said, okay, they need more time. Only had 8 months so far, need more time. Let's give them another 45 days.
Well, 8 months, how far are you going back? They were what formed? The working group was brought together when?
I think it was way back in about February or March, something like that.
See, and this is why I had to subscribe to the triplicate, because I was trying to find that date, and I couldn't.
Yeah.
And what I've heard from others was that it was about September or so.
Why don't you, you could have gone back to the minutes of the board meetings.
Yeah.
Okay.
How searchable are those?
Very easily.
Are they really?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can do that.
I assumed they weren't. That's my bad.
So anyhow, it was quite a few months ago, all right, to do that. And so we said, okay, we're going to give this 45 more days. And now we see, oh, here's a board agenda. They want this to continue for 10 months and 2 weeks. And then we don't know whether they're going to want an extension after that.
Did you ask them?
Well, you can't ask.
Why not?
Right?
You were saying,
sure,
you know Jesse.
You can ask. Oh, Jesse.
I mean, you could not the
No.
other supervisors. Did you ask?
Okay.
Did you ask the working group what their progress was? What's happening with it?
No, we didn't. We just assumed that they would give us some kind of progress report, but nothing ever appeared on the agenda. All right. You got to remember, a lot of times when I want something on the agenda, it just never appears. Guess what? It's because this chairman doesn't want it on there.
Well, okay, you say that now, but you're also saying that's not what happened in this case. You didn't ask.
You didn't ask.
Okay, well, I mean, that was something a concern raised by Jesse, is that before this vote, there wasn't any questioning of the working group. It was just assumed everybody was still holding on to this plan.
You got to remember that even our legal beagle, all right, who's on that, all right, Joel, pleaded with the board. Give me some direction for this working group. Give me something, anything, something.
When was this?
Oh, this has been like almost every meeting that he had when he was reporting to us, all right, what our options were. Silence was deafening. All right?
Okay, that's something I'd like to
Sure.
find out about, but that's interesting. Are these so? Because I've witnessed Joel and his exasperation after the vote last week, and just walking up with arms shrugging.
Sure.
And also heard, and I think it was Jesse who said that after the vote that now we have far less direction than we had an hour ago. So. And yeah, nothing but respect actually for Joel. He was the way he handled that meeting. I want to find out about him coming back and asking for it, because that's something I can't verify right now. If he was asking for direction for the group and the board was not giving direction.
Okay, so bottom line, where are we, you ask?
Well, I'm still working on how we got here.
Okay, let's work on how we got
So we've got this ban in the and was there a point at which you decided, I'm not going to vote to continue the ban? And if so, why? During that 45-day period, I mean, was there, I mean, you enter the 45-day ban, okay, we'll give them this 45 days. At what point did you go, all right, they've had it long enough?
I think at the end of that 45 days, all right, when it appeared on the agenda, remember, I only get the agenda on a Friday before Tuesday, and all of a sudden it appears there that we're going to continue the ban for another 10 months and 15 days.
Well, that makes it sound like you were blindsided by this.
Well, I'm always blindsided.
But it's a 45-day ban. You can count. You know when it's going to
I know when it's going to end.
expire.
Right. That's right. But here, and don't forget,
But you didn't know what would transpire at the end of that 45 days.
I knew that because this was on the agenda, as an extension of the ban, all right? And I'm saying to myself, I think we've got a problem here. I think we've got a board that doesn't want to make a decision. We're sent as a representative of the people to do just one thing. Only ask us to do one thing, and that is to vote. And when you get to the point where the board refuses to vote, then you've got a big problem. And so that's where I was. All right, I could see that this board basically was just going to kick the can down the road. And I didn't want that to happen.
Okay, well then let's talk about the kicking the can down the road dynamic.
You like that metaphor? You know, it's so
kicking
overused.
It's kind of, yeah. We need to come up with a digital version of it for the 21st century. I'm not sure.
I think I said kick the rock down the sewer. Right. Yeah. I tried to think of something else.
That's a Neil. Okay, so what is it you want then from the rest? You want them to stand up and have make a clear statement? Lori Cowan said that last week, that she's for cannabis in Delaware County, for the legal, responsible cannabis in Delaware County.
Well, I haven't heard that. All right.
Well, it's on the interviews on the website too. Yeah.
Okay. So
you're looking for that from Howard and Hemmingson?
Yeah, I made the motion, basically, that we don't continue the ban, okay? And realizing that, I assumed Mr. Gitlin would second that, okay? That what I was looking for is some direction from the board, because by not continuing that ban, the board is absolutely right. We are ending our control of marijuana in Delaware County. Now, at the next board, not the next board meeting, but basically...
Because you'll be out, right?
Yeah, we'll be out. All right. In 30 days, the board can say, they can take a direction. They can vote to make a permanent ban on cannabis. Now, it's not to say that that ban couldn't be overturned once a policy comes forward. But at least they're going to take an action, or not. If they don't take an action, then marijuana becomes legal in Delaware County, and I would imagine we'll get some applicants. And
well, not even just because it's legal now.
Sure, right. Who knows what's going to happen? Now, they take a big risk in that. Let's assume that they pay an application fee to the state and do all of this and get it all ready. And then the board comes along with a policy.
Sure.
So that's a big risk for anybody who's going to do anything in Delaware County.
In your statement in the at the meeting, and I believe also in the local voices that you that you had in the paper, you said that one of the reasons why you voted to stop the ban was for people who wanted to open business in Delaware County.
They need to know.
They need to know what?
They need to know whether they're going to be able to have a business or not have a business.
But they don't now. They're able to get the license. It seems like you've set up a situation in which some of the very people that you hope to champion are out on a limb now, because they might spend the money and get the license.
That's right.
And then when an ordinance does come down the pike, they'll be screwed. I mean,
no, you said it right. All right. I want them to be aware of what the problems may be, because I'm hoping that this board will make a decision that Jesse Davis and the crew that he's with will come to the board. They'll have an impetus now to come to the board and say, here's a policy that we want to have. And I'm hoping that the board will, if it's a reasonable policy, will go along with it. So actually what's happening here, rather than having a 10-month and 15-day timeline on this thing, and that it could go on forever, and these people who want to have cannabis in Delaware County, having them on a limb forever, now at least we let them know what the board's going to do. I wish I knew what the board was going to do.
Well, that seems like that's not a logical characterization of it, because they're not on the limb forever if the ban stayed in place. They're on the limb now.
No,
if they spend the money to get the license and not know what the future of that license in Delaware County is going to be.
And I'm assuming that they won't do that. I don't know of anybody that's done that so far.
There was what? I know that there was one. What was it that Joel said? There was one. There's been
made an
one
inquiry.
person. An inquiry, yes. There was somebody made an inquiry. There was somebody else that I'd heard about who were kind of. But yeah, it is a lot of money. But you can spend. What did I have? Oh, that was at the Cannabis Working Group meeting. Joel said that.
Okay.
People could get in a lot of trouble with this, and it could incur a lot of costs for the county having to deal with that, having to deal with enforcement, having to deal even with maybe perhaps subsequent litigation when somebody has said you're not in compliance anymore, close your business or change it.
It's possible.
So why open the county to that possible liability in this window without a ban or
I don't think
ordinance?
we're opening that to the county. I think that most reasonable growers and distributors and all of the others are going to pay attention to what the county does. I don't think they're going to go headlong into this unless they know where the county stands.
There are folks in the cannabis industry in California who are essentially carpetbagging, where it's easy to move in and to make a quick buck. And everybody in the industry here, Jesse Davis, Patrick Smith, people I've talked about have said, watch out for these guys, because they're traveling around and they're looking for weak spots where they can come in and make a quick dollar in cannabis someplace easily. Isn't that Del Norte County, at least for the foreseeable future? As far as I know, and I was not able to fact check this, we're the only county without something on the book right now.
Yeah, I don't know that's true. I've heard that from Jesse.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether it's true
I don't know.
or not.
I haven't been able to call every county yet.
Statement. So, I'm concerned, okay? But I'm more concerned about something else.
What's that?
Take a look at this headline. I'm sure you saw it, right? Gitlin Berkowitz must be held responsible. Some things I've never seen before.
This was the Coastal Voices,
the Coastal
Chris
Voices
Howard.
by Chris Howard. Look at the language. Great betrayal plan. Fiasco. Demonstrates lack of integrity. Political grandstanding. Scripting their concocted statements. Selfish political interests. Must be held responsible for their actions, show some integrity, demand them to step down and let people with integrity replace them. You know,
he sounds pissed.
He is. He is. But the point is that, you have a board of 5. And what you try to do is certainly not impugn their integrity. Because just because they believe a certain way that's different than you do, you don't want to try to tear out their heart.
Well, do you think he was questioning your beliefs or your behavior?
Well, take a look at this. Political grandstanding. Okay.
Yeah, he said that in the meeting, too, right after you made your statement.
I've never heard this before on a board before.
Really?
On a board member. Yeah.
This doesn't sound like Gitlin when the whole solid waste management thing was going on, all of that, and his Coastal Voices?
Nope.
Really?
In fact, in the Coastal Voices pieces, I never heard him. Maybe you could look back at it. I've never seen this kind of vitriol on the part of one board member to other board members. And what that makes it makes it very difficult, because what you want to do is you want to work with these people in order to make Del Norte a better county.
Sure.
And when you try to tear apart them personally, it makes it very difficult to do, because I've never had that problem in 12 years that I spent on the school board. We always had disagreements. Sometimes they were difficult disagreements, but we never went after anybody personally. And this is what's happened with this particular chairman. Remember, chairman's responsibility is to bring your board together, is to try to get everybody to cooperate, all right? Sure, you give them their ability to speak and talk and present their point of view, but you never call them names personally. And this is the kind of thing that's making it very difficult for this board to achieve its objectives of doing good things for Delaware County.
Well, it seems, I mean, obviously what he's taking umbrage with is that you and Roger, I'm sure it seems to everybody on the board, everybody else on the, I don't want to characterize how they see it, but that you jumped ship, that you switched horses in midstream. There was a process in place, and that for some reason you changed it, and it was unexpected. And it seemed to hit everybody in the room kind of blindside that you did this.
Well, you got to remember that Supervisor Gitlin and myself are on different sides of this.
That's true. That's true.
Right? You know, he is absolutely against any kind of ordinance that's coming through that's going to legalize recreational marijuana, okay, in Delaware County. You know, I, on the other hand, at the very first meeting that when we discussed this, I said that I wanted reasonable regulation of recreational marijuana.
Isn't that what we've gotten rid of now with this, though?
No, we don't have reasonable, and we don't. All the board has to do is vote for it. That's all they have to do.
That's all they have to do, but it still will take 2 months for there to be anything on the books.
Well, darn it all right? They've taken 3 years to do this, and now they can say, scream bloody murder because we're going to take
I think it's that. I think it's more that there was a process that everybody, including yourself, voted to continue and to do all this last year.
I voted to continue a ban so that we could have some time for this, extra time. For this group to come with some kind of a proposal, all right, that the board would be able to vote on. Now we're going to have that. We're going to have it in 30 days.
So the extra time, though, 45 days, we did this 45-day, the initial ban, even the timeline for getting an ordinance on the book, you couldn't even condense that into 45 days. It would be extraordinary to condense that into 45 days. So even voting at the outset of the 45-day ban in the hopes that there would be something here, you're still going to end up with lag time after the ban expires, before there's an ordinance on the books.
You know, you could have prevented that kind of thing. We have numerous counties that are small counties similar to ours that have already instituted some kind of process, some kind of regulation, some kind of policy. Let me see. We'll take the best parts of this one and combine it with the best parts of this one, and we present that to the working group. How does that sound? Yeah, it sounds pretty good. Maybe we want to modify it this way and that way. And we come up with something.
There are some that, yes, they're doing that, and a lot that are still in the process of trying to wait to see what shakes out in places where things get very complicated and humbled. And a lot of the smaller counties, I think I read something about 30% of the counties in the state have instituted bans and have just sort of stepped back, take a breath, and see what happens in these larger, more adventurous counties. And there's been fallout, and there's been all kinds of trouble and problems. And it seems reasonable to kind of step back and go, all right, what's happening here, and piece together. I think what Chris Howard is having trouble with is we had a process, and now not only is this process abandoned and thrown, you know, the future is a little less certain, perhaps, at least as far as the ideas that they had.
We still have a process.
But that process now has a big gaping hole in the middle in which the county could come up against a whole bunch of liability.
Oh, not liability. I don't know how we're going to be liable for a vote that we've taken. No.
Liable? No, you're going to be liable for having to pay for whatever court cases come up because of somebody comes in, say, with a lot of money from out of the county, sets up a business, and ordinance is passed. That business isn't in compliance anymore. They're going to sue. Maybe.
That's pretty outrageous.
But it's possible.
Remember, the county is not collecting any money on this, therefore.
Exactly. But it's possible now, whereas it wasn't before.
It would be possible under any kind of circumstance. All right, you can be sued for anything at any time for any excuse.
No, suing is possible under any circumstance. Right. Suing because all of a sudden the license that you purchased in good faith from the state to operate in Delaware County is now not in compliance with Delaware County because that's a very specific sort of thing that is much more possible now than it was before the ban.
Well, it's possible. But I think the trade-offs are better because now we're going to have something in 30 days where the board's going to say something. They have to say something, all right? If they don't say anything, then that says a lot too, because what we're going to be left with is the state issuing the licenses.
Now, I'll give you that.
Thank you, Paul.
Because
you're such a magnanimous guy.
Yeah, you know, you're my guest. No, that the board, I do believe, yes, the board needs to make a statement. And one reason...
they need to make a statement, but they now are forced to make a statement of something.
Of something,
that didn't happen before. We're going to ride this out for 10 months and then have another extension after that. And we'll leave all these people who are planning to do something in the field of marijuana, we'll just let them wait and wait and wait so that they don't know where this board's going to be. That's what the situation was prior to the vote on Tuesday.
The statement that needs to be made, I agree with you. I would like to know how everybody stands on it. And I know how you stand. I know how Lori stands. I know how Roger stands. Yeah. And I would like to know how Chris and Jerry stand. Yes, exactly. To me, it was implied where they stood because of the process set up. And I can also see people in public office sitting back and, kicking the can down the road because you don't want to. I think there are a lot of people here in Delaware County who still, of a certain age, aren't comfortable standing up and saying, I'm for cannabis in Delaware County, because that still strikes them as like strange. Needs to be said. I just don't see, and I can also kind of see how Chris Howard would think this is some sort of political ploy to get the board to do something.
It is. I'll give him that.
Sure, but it leaves.
It is a political ploy to get him to do something.
It leaves, first off, the county open without anything on the books right now to see what happens. And that's also a very un-Del Norte thing to do, Bob.
Hey, I'm ready to take that risk.
Are you ready?
Sure. Right. Look, okay, unlike a lot of others in this position that you've seen before, I have no ambitions to be a career politician. My voters can get rid of me at any time. All right? If they want to recall me because they don't like what I've done, they can do that.
Okay.
If they want to vote me out at the next election, should I determine that I want to run again?
That's the caveat in Delaware County. Right. If I even want to put myself through this again, that's right. They can change it.
So that's the risk. But I'm saying, okay, I'm going to do as much as I can for what the voters in my district and the county
and every district
wanted to have done.
Okay. I think the perception of there being some sort of political reason behind this, something, and you can say, you want to get the board to make a statement. You want to get the board, want to get the others on the board to stand up and clearly state how they feel about cannabis. Let's say you go and have a good time in Japan. You come back, you vote on
good time.
You have a good time talking about earthquakes and tsunamis in Japan, and you come back and you vote, and there is a permanent ban. Which, of course, I love the line from the meeting when Joel said, that's the easiest ban to write. I could write that right now. It's one sentence. Permanent ban in place. The working group is continuing its work. We have this, say, 2-month window where there isn't anything on the books. And then let's just say the ban gets back on sometime late spring, whatever. I don't know. I think the working group is close to their very first thing, at least judging by what Jesse said. The very first part of the ordinances that they want to roll out. Ban's in place. Working group comes with the first increment of the ordinance. You vote for that if it makes sense to you?
If it makes sense to me, sure. That's in keeping with the policy that I had at the very first meeting where this was discussed. And absolutely. I know one vote it won't get. All right.
Yeah.
Of course, Mr. Gitlin, feels the opposite way. How they can feel we're in cahoots is beyond me. All right, we're on different sides of this thing. But I've got to give Chris Howard some due.
That was a measured pause. Yeah. Go ahead.
In fact, I was wrong. I was wrong at the board meeting.
How so?
Well, Mr. Howard said, you're making this into it's all political. And I said, no, you're making the one that says the statement is political. And I'm revising my statement, basically, to you. First time. It is political. Everything we do is political. Right. I mean, we are, as we like to say, we're statesmen. No, we're politicians. And so that's the kind of thing. Yeah, it's politics. But it shouldn't be this kind of politics that damages your integrity and challenges you
personal politics
challenges you on your honesty.
The one thing that makes it seem very political, of course, and of course you just say it was political.
Thank you.
Is that it seems that You've just said you'll vote for, if there's a reasonable something comes out of the working group, when there's a ban in place, and we'll kind of go through the process that was already in place. So, by two things. By inserting this gap of at least a couple of months into the whole process, you move Howard and Hemmingson that much closer to election time.
Okay, all right.
So
you want to do that, but shouldn't their voters know where they stand?
Yes,
anyway,
their voters should know where they stand. Exactly. And I absolutely agree with you. Everybody we should know what the board wants instead of it just being implied.
Yeah, wait a minute. You know where Gitlin stands.
I do.
You know where I stand.
I do.
Where's everybody
I do know
else?
where Lori stands. Lori said it right here on the air.
Where does Hemmingson and where does Howard stand?
That's good, but
why don't you get them on this program?
I do plan to do that, actually. That's exactly right. Because I've never had either Chris Howard or Jerry Hemmingson
Why not?
on there, and I don't know. It was more fun to interview you and Roger.
That's because we're more controversial.
Yeah, exactly. It was, and I like Lori. She's nice. I've known her for years. So, okay. So, doing this, inserting this uncertain period when there is nothing on the books in Delaware County regarding cannabis, moving all of this on, you've basically said that you will pick up the process again down the road when the working group comes with an ordinance or a piece of an ordinance. And you've also admitted this is a political move.
Which every move we make is political.
Okay. So I think there could be, and certainly online, there were several people who might take umbrage with the fact that you are making a political move, and in that process, leaving the county and its citizens open to the state regulation. Leaving us just completely dead in the water.
30 days. Could happen.
That I think people have a problem with.
Okay.
They feel like pawns, or they feel like the issue has become a pawn in the political machinations of the board.
The people that I speak to say, where does the board stand on all this, and when are they going to make a decision? That's what I get.
Okay.
And I say, I don't know.
From my side, it seemed that they did make a decision, and that indicated where they stood because they'd set up the working group in its process.
And I agree. I want the working group to continue. But I want them to speed up the process. And don't tell me it takes their excuse, by the way, the other board members, they need more time to get it right. That's baloney.
Why? Why is that baloney?
That's baloney because if they want to be against it, that's the excuse they're going to use clear out. As far as the eye can see.
Aren't you
making They didn't get it right. If they'd only made this minor change, we would be okay.
So you...
and wait a minute, and we needed this 10 months in order to get it right. And then after that 10 months, we need another year to get it right. That's a phony excuse.
Well, I'm not sure if it's a phony excuse, because right now it is impossible to tell the difference between a phony excuse and a well thought out and intentioned process that was put in place that involved a whole big cross-section of this community to get community input.
I would agree with you if we hadn't been working on this for 2.5 to 3 years.
But there are things that changed in the last 6 months that would need to have been dealt with.
Things are changing all the time.
Okay, that's a big statement. Things specifically about the implementation of Proposition 64. There were state regulations that weren't set until after the summer this last year.
There were things that weren't even set until... They're not even set now.
See?
The tracking. State tracking is not in place.
And in all this craziness where things aren't set, isn't it wrong to open the county to sort of just be open to all of this flux and all of this uncertainty and all of this possible liability and danger, everything from zoning issues to environmental issues? I mean, somebody sets up a grow on French Hill, or not French Hill, but up Low Divide. It gets to they do something yucky to their plants. It gets into Hardscrabble Creek. It's in the Smith. That could all happen right now. Is that worth the political point you're willing to make?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
We're not going to get that kind of disaster scenario in 30 days. Sorry, just not going to happen.
How can you be certain about that? How can you be as certain about that as you are about the intentions of the other board of supervisors wanting to just kick this issue down the road?
How can you be so certain that we're going to have pollution of the Smith River and all kinds of other kinds of disasters in 30 days?
No, that's true. I'm not certain, but it is a possibility that wasn't there before this vote.
Well, I'm of the possibility of thinking that maybe in 30 days we can have something in place that will at least move the situation forward in a better manner.
Okay, and you will continue with the process then of implementing ordinances that come from the working group.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know.
And you would like to hear what from the rest of the board specifically? I mean, not just. I mean, but I mean, do you have a dream scenario where?
Sure. My dream scenario is that the board makes a decision.
A decision regarding
regarding marijuana. What do they want to do?
Okay, but in that sort of statement, that leaves it open. I mean, the board can come back. They put the ban in. They say we're going to follow the process. But do you want something more? Do you want to actually have the words out of their mouth? I am for cannabis in Del Norte.
They can do whatever they want to do. If they want to leave the process as it is, legal in California and legal in Del Norte County, they will do that by their silence. If they want to do something else, they will say that, all right? It will be on the agenda. I'll be interested to see what exactly happens, but something's going to happen. Mm-hmm. I want something to happen, all right? I want the board to make a decision. Mr. Gitlin wants the board to make a decision, even though it may go against him or for him, whatever it happens to be. But the decision is there. The people need to know.
Okay, fair enough. No, fair enough. I think that there's a lot of folks in this county that would that have vehemently disagreed with the manner in which you've come about it. But the point you're making is absolutely true. Okay. I think that if there has not been, and you're there for every meeting, and if you're not sure what the other board members want from this, I think it's fair to expect a statement, at least in some fashion, either doing something, saying something on the record about what they feel the future of cannabis in Del Norte.
Now think about this, okay? You think it's a legitimate argument. You may not agree with it, but you think it's a legitimate argument. And we can have a discussion about this, right? Mm-hmm. You and I, right? Mm-hmm. What kind of a discussion you think I'm going to have with Chairman Howard after this article of Coastal Voices where he tries to tear my heart out?
Well, I don't know. It depends on whichever of you is the bigger man, I suppose.
It's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting, all right? Because I haven't run into this kind of a problem where people calls my integrity into question. All right? I would never do that to another board member. And all of the other kinds of things, political grandstanding, never do that.
Well,
all right?
Yeah. No, I can understand you taking exception to the
betrayal plan.
Yeah.
Does that say it for you?
I can understand his point of view.
Yeah, well, sure, I can understand his point of view, but he doesn't have to make it so darn personal.
No, okay, all right, granted. I think maybe return Roger's call and see what he has to offer as far as making you feel better about this situation. I think he has a lot of experience dealing with that. Mm-hmm. You've been besmirched, I think, would be Roger's.
Yeah, Roger would say that. All right, but basically both of us have. All right, mm-hmm. I'm the only one basically responding to it right at this particular moment. But I think I want the chairman to have an idea of the kinds of things that he is doing to this board by making things personal for board members against board members. How does he bring that board together? How does he bring them together to have any kind of a decent dialogue?
Do you want to address in any way the committee appointments that you refused to?
Well, I did give the chairman the opportunity to bring that on in public. Mm-hmm. I said, I'm not going to serve on, and I think it was about 6 or 7 committees. And I had given the chairman the reasons why I was not going to do that. Mm-hmm. And I gave the chairman the option to bring that out and tell the rest of the public why I did not want to do that. He felt that he really didn't want to do that. And so
And you don't want to do that here?
I'm not going to do that here.
Okay.
I'm not going to give you an exclusive. Sorry, Paul.
No, that's fine. It's not an exclusive. It's just I'm trying to see, if you're talking about divisiveness on the board, that might be another instance of it. That's something that you might have control over to sort of change the environment of working on the board.
Well, he could have changed the environment, basically, and taken a look at the reasons why I didn't want to serve, and then mitigate those reasons, all right, and say, I've mitigated the reason, will you reconsider? Never had a conversation with me whatsoever. On these committee assignments, it used to be, I've talked to previous board members, Chuck Blackburn and a number of others, what usually happened with these board appointments? And say, well, the chairman would come to you and he would say, well, what committees would you like to have for the upcoming year? And then you would discuss the fit that you would have with these committees. Are there something that maybe you're passionate about? You want to be on this certain committee? The board has never approached me or Mr. Gitlin, I don't know about the others, about what committee assignments they would like to have. They were just given to you. I said, okay, I can take that for a year. That's no problem. When I asked the chairman, well, what about committee assignments for next year? This was a couple of months ago. He said, oh, we're just going to keep the committee assignments the same. So for 2 years, I've not had any input into the process of committee assignments, nor that I know of as any other board member. That's usually not the way to run a railroad. Usually what you want to do is at least have a board member comfortable with the assignments that they want to have, rather than dictating, you are going to do this. I don't believe in the you are going to do this kind of thing, especially when 5 members of the board have all equal power. I'm going to say, no, you can't be a dictator. You have to have some kind of a buy-in by the board members on the committee assignments that you have dictated they're going to have. Because I do have the ability to say no. And that's what I did.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Bob. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I want to say that this is a great interview. Paul, you've done an excellent job. You ought to be You ought to be in radio.
I've got the face for it. How about you, Donna? How are you doing? Good. All right. Thumbs up from Donna Westfall. I'm looking forward to Linda getting back in the country. I want to have her on the air. I want to hear about Greece.
Yeah. Yeah.
All righty, Bob Berkowitz, thank you for coming in and I guess continuing the dialogue. I know that, and there is going to be a whole bunch of people who do not agree with what you say, and that's just part of the job, right?
What's new?
Oh, thank you very much though for coming in and sitting down and talking to us. I appreciate that, and I guess we can return Roger's call now.